Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm Chris Thomas.
I'm Laura Painter. Tonight, we are giving you the information you need to cast your vote in the November election. The headline, our conversation with Sacramento's two mayoral candidates, current Assemblymember Kevin McCarty and public health professional Dr. Flojan Kofer.
Yeah, we'll speak to the candidates in just a moment. But first, ABC10's Becca Hobbecker is here now to talk about their backgrounds.
Chris and Laura, I sat down with them to ask about the formative people and moments in their lives and what led them to seek the office of Sacramento mayor. Now, you'll see their stories back to back. We did do a coin toss to decide whose would appear first, and that was Dr. Flo Kofer.
I grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I am the daughter of two public school teachers. And so the first value that was ever instilled in me was that community takes care of one another. But unfortunately, when I was 11, we were at my aunt's birthday dinner and my dad collapsed and he died from heart disease. And he was only 47. My dad started smoking when he was in his teens. And that was before we had a Surgeon General's warning, before the tobacco industry was honest about the harms of cigarettes. And so my dad struggled with an addiction that ultimately took his life. There's a saying in public health of tell us about your life experiences, your early ones, and how they brought you to public health. And mine is a pretty clear line. I wanted to be a part of a profession that helped protect people and make sure that we had quality in our lives as well as a long life that we can enjoy with our families. And that's what brought me to California 20 years ago, to Sacramento, to do an epidemiology fellowship at the Department of Public Health. And I fell in love with Sacramento, and I just felt like this was a great place to be grounded and to be able to do great work with great people and have a high quality of life.
Tell me what personally led you into politics, into running for mayor?
I was working professionally in public health and also serving on local committees, active transportation, the Mayor's Climate Commission, and then our Measure U Tax Advisory Committee. And I realized that the plans we were putting together needed someone who had executive leadership experience to help us execute and implement them. And that's what really pushed me to run for mayor.
What makes you proud to be a Sacramentan?
One of the things that makes me proudest to be a Sacramentan is truly the way that we live in an intercultural space. And I think that really natural blend that occurs when you're living together in such close proximity and going to the same events and learning some of the same, language and local culture means that we're all being influenced by one another. And it's one of the things that I enjoy most about being in Sacramento. It makes me Sacramento proud outside of just the Kings.
I'm a lifelong Sacramentan, and where I grew up, we moved a lot. Single parent mom, 4 kids. I think we moved 9 times my first 13, 14 years in life, right around here in Sacramento. Living that environment taught me a lot of lessons about grit and hard work from my mom, which she passed away about 15 years ago. So those valuable lessons are here today, and also reminds me that, a lot of families are struggling today, just as our family did, decades ago.
What led you into politics, of all the ways you could serve your community?
Yeah, I think it was failure. I flunked out of high school, went to adult school, got a second chance, went to community college here in Sacramento, ended up at the CSU system, Long Beach State, then back to Sacramento State for my master's degree. And I saw how public service and public policy could help communities. And I saw how it impacted my life as a kid. Single parent mom benefited from, child care, after school programs, scholarships for her to go to college. And so I really kind of fell in love with the opportunity to make a difference and serve our community. And most importantly, solve problems and help people. So that's how I got in this a couple decades ago, and I'm still at it today. And I know I have a lot more that I can do to help Sacramento.
Tell me about a moment that changed your perspective on life.
It's having kids, that you're responsible for the future of somebody else. And so now our kids aren't no longer little kids, they're teenagers in high school. And so one, it's very humbling to be, a dad of teenage girls, but it's really exciting as well to see, them grow up. It reminds me of our job in life as a parent, as a community member, and as an elected leader, as far as, making decisions, making choices that impact not just you, but the people that you're helping to shape, and also the next generation.
What makes you proud to be a Sacramentan?
I think we're a resilient city. We have a lot to be proud of, and I like the diversity. We just really embrace our culture and our community in Sacramento. That's what makes us a special place, and that's why we're thriving, and that's why I want to be mayor of Sacramento too, to embrace that even more.
Now, as for how much money each candidate has raised, according to the latest campaign statement, which tracks spending through September 21st, Cofer has received more than $413,000 in contributions this year. McCarty has received more than $747,000 this year.
Becca, thank you. And now to the conversation with the candidates. Keep in mind it was recorded on Sunday in partnership with Telemundo, and nothing has been edited. Take a look. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm Chris Thomas with ABC10.
And I'm Miriam Villarreal with Telemundo 33.
In November, Sacramento will elect a new mayor, and so we want to focus on the issues that matter to you.
Yes, Telemundo and ABC10 are teaming up to bring you a conversation with the candidates for mayor of Sacramento. We have Assemblymember Kevin McCarty and public health professional Dr. Flojan Cofer.
Now, keep in mind, this is a conversation and not a debate, but we do want to make sure that each candidate has equal time to answer the questions. So here are the guidelines. No topics or questions have been shared with either campaign. Each candidate will have 1 minute to answer a question and 30 seconds for rebuttal. Dr. Cofer won the coin toss, so she gets to answer the first question.
So we're going to go ahead and start with you, Dr. Cofer. The number one issue we heard from voters in Sacramento is homelessness. So, Dr. Cofer, what has worked right now and what has not worked to address the current issue?
I think it's really important that we start with this because it is the number one issue. And part of what we know is that what is working is making sure that people have a place to go. And so that's the question that we're constantly asking ourselves, because right now our shelters are full and we don't have enough places for people to go. And so part of what we need to do next is make sure we have more places for people to go, places where people can get a shower and are able to charge their cell phones and have a stable place to be so we can get them enrolled in services. And that's a top priority for me. Before we start talking about what we don't want and where we don't want people to go, we need to make sure we have good, solid choices for people to say yes to. And that's my top priority coming in, because we're hearing it from businesses, we're hearing it from homeowners, we're hearing it from people who are sleeping on our streets, that they want a place to go. And that's the number one issue that we need to solve.
Thank you, Dr. Cofer. Same question for you, Assemblymember McCarty. What has worked and what has not worked currently to address this situation?
Well, it's the reason I decided to run for mayor. I have kids who are in middle school and they're walking home from school and had to dodge encampments and dogs on ropes to get home. And that's not right for kids or any neighborhood. So we need to focus on more practical solutions to the issue. We've marginally been successful dropping the numbers since the last census, but we have a lot of work to do. What I would do is 5 things. Number one, I want to audit on day one our city budget where we're spending money on homelessness to make sure we're getting our biggest bang for our buck. Number two, we need to enforce the law. We can't have urban camping in city parks, in front of businesses, in front of neighborhoods. And we need to do that especially when other cities are cracking down. So we don't want more people coming to Sacramento. Number three, we need to find more practical places to put people. Not the Cadillac version that's $600,000 per individual. How about small tiny homes and vacant land across the city and the county of Sacramento? We need to work better with the county of Sacramento on behavioral health issues. And lastly, we realize that so much is about behavioral health. We need to make sure we focus on untreated mental illness.
Thank you, Assemblymember McCarty. Dr. Cofer, you have 30 seconds for rebuttal. Would you like to respond?
Absolutely, yes. We are cycling people through the most expensive systems we have, 911 and our jails and our emergency departments, with no answers in place. We're spending $1 million per person every year forever without getting solutions. And many of the people who have been in office already have failed to provide appropriate solutions to this. And so that's why we need new leadership in Sacramento. We need actual public health professionals that have a plan and know how to work together with coalitions to make solutions happen.
Thank you, Assemblymember McCarty. Same time, 30 seconds if you would like to respond.
We can go to the next question. We'll save our time.
Well, I do just want to do a quick follow-up here. I want you to talk about whether or not you support clearing homeless encampments. To be clear, you have 30 seconds.
Yeah, we need to enforce the law. We can't have people having growing encampments throughout the city of Sacramento. Supreme Court came down recently, said cities are doing it. Other cities are doing it. We need to follow suit. Conversely, we need to be more nimble in telling people where they can go. I don't support the proposal to use city parks. I think there's plenty of vacant, underutilized city-state land we should be using. But yes, I will enforce the law. We can't have encampments in front of neighborhoods, businesses, churches, city parks. It's not good for neighborhoods, nor is it good for homeless.
Dr. Kofer, your response, you have 30 seconds. Do you support clearing encampments? And he also brought up this notion that you want to use parks for the homeless.
Yeah, so first and foremost, I don't want people to be in places that they can't stay for a long time and where they're not well served. So our answer to this question is, where can people go? Because clearing people without a proper destination means they go from my house to your house to the next house, from one business to the other. And that's not a long-term solution. It's inefficient and it's ineffective. It's also what we're doing right now, and it's failing. So I want to actually put in place plans that will work, new plans that will make sure that people have a place to go before we start talking about where people can't be.
Dr. Kofer, we have another question. You kind of spoke a little bit about businesses, so we know business owners are frustrated as well with the situation. They say it's affecting their bottom line. So what will you do to address their concerns?
Yeah, as a public health professional, we actually have solutions to this already. We have ways to be able to address the 200 to 300 hardest to reach people that, again, are costing us $1 million per person every year without a long-term solution. Except we already have Medi-Cal that can provide down payment assistance and wraparound services to make sure that people can be well cared for in the long time. Because many of these are people with complex needs and they need our support. And working with the business community to be able to do this, as well as our emergency service providers, is the best way to be able to have a long-term effective solution.
Same question for you, Assemblymember McCarty. What's your message to those business owners who are concerned with the homeless situation?
Yeah, I've talked to plenty of business groups, and the business groups engaged in this campaign have endorsed our candidacy. I have ideas to lower the barriers, to streamline building permits, to have zero fees for first year for small businesses in Sacramento. But the number one issue I hear from them is public safety and homelessness. Unless we get a handle on that and focus on the encampments and clean up our streets, people are going to continue to shop elsewhere, shop in different districts. We already see people shopping more online in Roosevelt Galleria. Unless we address the issue number one, it's going to be a major draw on our city of Sacramento.
All right, thank you so much. We're going to move on to our next topic, next question. So we first with you, Assemblymember McCarty, the Sacramento Police Department currently has 76 sworn vacancies. What's your approach to deal with these vacancies?
Well, I guess the big picture with police is when I was a city council member 15 years ago, we had 67,000 fewer people in the city of Sacramento and 49 more police officers. The grand jury came out last year and says we're a city in crisis with such low staffing. It's deeply troubling. We have vacancies on CHP cities up and down the state, from LA to San Jose, everywhere in between. So it's an issue hiring people in all kinds of fields. What I don't want to do is take money away from the city police department. I think that's a dangerous proposal, to take money away from the city police department. We need to focus on balancing our budget, and the economy grows, get back to staffing where we were 15 years ago. You know, we have more people, again, in our core of Sacramento, more protests, more activity, more people in these new neighborhoods, fewer police officers showing up at roll call to answer 911 calls. It's a serious crisis. We can't threaten having fewer officers on our streets. That's why I'm proud to have the support from our Police Officers Association to grow the police department.
Thank you, Assemblymember McCarty. Same question for you, Dr. Kofer. What's your approach to deal with these 76 sworn vacancies that the Sacramento Police Department currently has?
Yes, unfortunately, our police chief has said that there's nobody in the recruits in the academy to be able to fill these positions. So we have to work smart. We can't just continue to think that we're going to answer this question without being strategic about it. We have vacancies. We also know that 32% of our officers' time is spent on non-police tasks. I'd like that to be 100% so that they can drop their response times and really focus on the things that they were trained as well as hired to do. And that involves making sure that we have appropriate professionals to support them. Both of my parents were public school teachers, and I see us doing the same ineffective strategy with the police that we do with teachers, forcing them to be other professionals that they were not trained to do. And so this way we actually get the police the help that they need so that they can have balance. And this is a proposal that the Los Angeles Police Union, the largest union in the state, proposed last year to shift 28 calls from the responsive officers because they said these calls don't require a uniformed officer and would be much better suited for unarmed service providers.
And Dr. Kofer, I just want to drill down here because this has been a point that you all differ on. To be clear, you're saying that you believe that you should do what with those vacancies, and you're also suggesting that you believe that there should be some type of community force that should respond as opposed to police officers, correct?
It's not so much a community force as it is we're taking some of those vacancies that we don't have anyone to fill, and instead of requiring our officers to do more overtime, we're shifting responsibility for several of the calls that police departments themselves have said don't require a uniformed officer, so someone else can respond. And that those people are trained professionals who can handle those calls. And it was a proposal that would only cost a few $1,000,000 and would still allow there to be some money left over in the vacancies.
And Assemblymember McCarty, I know that you seem to have called this a dangerous proposal, the notion of allegedly cutting the police department, you said. Your response, 30 seconds.
Yeah, well, there's two things. So one, cutting the police department by $70 million, which has been proposed, I think would make our city less safe. But even the vacancy issue, which is a sliver of that, if you didn't have the resources, you couldn't pay overtime to officers to do double shifts. And currently that's what they do. Officers do want to do that to boost their overtime. So we'd have a roll call in the morning with, 20 or 30% fewer officers to respond to 911 calls. That would make the city of Sacramento less safe. So I don't think this is the right time to be cutting sworn officers who are serving the streets of Sacramento.
Did you want a quick rebuttal, 30 seconds, Dr. Kofer?
Yes. My opponent knows that I've never proposed cutting officers. What I've talked about is over time, shifting resources from just the police department to public safety overall. In the same way that emergency rooms are not all of healthcare, police are not all of public safety. Public safety also involves people's ability to be able to be on the street, moving around, traffic safety. It also involves violence prevention. And when we cut those, we actually make the officers' jobs harder without giving them the necessary support they need to create safety in our community. I am the fund public safety candidate because I want outcomes, not rhetoric.
Okay, we will have more to say about this, I'm sure, but we do have other topics we need to cover. Let's talk about the affordable housing crisis. It's also a big concern. So what is your plan to tackle the problem? And please provide examples. Let's start with you, Assemblymember.
Yeah, it's a top issue of my candidacy. I'm super concerned about the next generation staying here in Sacramento. I have teenage girls, and I'm concerned about their generation wanting to stay in Sacramento, being able to live here in Sacramento. So we need to make sure we don't lose our talent elsewhere. It's going to be a drain on our economy. So I want to do three things. My first day as mayor, I want to create a blue ribbon commission to focus on the building department to make it easier for apartment, multifamily, lot splits to build housing here in Sacramento, make that our competitive advantage. I also want to focus on our vacant state buildings downtown. I wrote the law that we're implementing right now, turning the EDD building into 500 affordable housing units. There are plenty of more state buildings downtown which we can do, and I'll zero in as mayor using my relationships and my experience. Lastly, I want to go back to the voters, like some Bay Area cities have done, and create a fund to help subsidize the building of more affordable housing, to help first-time home buyers buy housing in the first place, help students and seniors. We need to have all solutions on the table to deal with this cutting issue.
Okay, Dr. Kofer, same question. You get 1 minute as well. What's your plan to tackle the affordable housing crisis? And please provide specifics.
Yes, we need housing at all levels of affordability and attainability in our region. We need workforce housing. We also need some of the low-income housing. And when I was on the Measure U Community Advisory Committee as its chair, one of the things that we were pushing for was the promise made to voters the last time we asked them for their money, which was to be able to fund an affordable housing fund to be able to provide for these projects. And unfortunately, the city lied to voters and we didn't fund that affordable housing fund. And so part of what I want to do is make sure we're not going back to voters asking them for more money before we have had shown integrity with the dollars that we already asked for this purpose. And so that's priority for me. In addition, I don't just want the building department to work well, I want every department in the city to work well, because that allows us to be able to streamline our operations, making sure that you know exactly where you are in the process and we can have it done as quickly as possible. And then lastly, I want to make sure that as we're thinking about housing, we're thinking about retrofitting, marrying our climate goals with also our housing goals so that we're able to have good solutions.
Okay, Assemblymember, I want to give you 30 seconds to respond, but I'm sure you want to drill down on this notion of the city lying to voters and how money is being spent and things of that nature, especially as you're calling for yet another fund.
Well, during the great pandemic, we lost a lot of money for the general fund, and we used those resources to balance the budget, to keep the city from laying off police officers and firefighters. And I think we had to keep the city afloat. I wasn't here at the city council back then, but I applaud that decision. But going forward, we need to focus on what's the city we want to live in. We want to have more peace officers, more firefighters, adequately fund our parks and youth programs, but also focus on building housing. Again, this could be a critical issue and make or break for the future of Sacramento. More people are coming in from the Bay Area, and we're squeezing out people here, so we need adequate rental protections and all hands on deck building more housing.
Okay, Dr. Kofer, 30 seconds.
What we know in public health is that we live in one city and the decisions we make in one pot affect the others. And so when we made the decision to increase our police budget by $100 million between 2020 and 2024, we decided not to invest in violence prevention. We decided not to invest in affordable housing. We decided not to invest in our creative economy. And I think that was a mistake, because what we know is that those are things that also create safety. And so I want us to be able to have a robust, thriving city, not one that we're managing towards decline because we're stuck in old ways that are ineffective and have not worked for us.
All right, now let's talk about the budget deficit. So as we know, this year the city had a more than $60 million budget deficit. We're going to start with you, Dr. Kofer. What will you do as mayor to avoid another massive budget deficit, and do you support raising taxes?
I can start with, I do not support raising taxes because I think we need to do right by the dollars that we have. And we need to focus on two things. Number one, growing our revenue. Nothing is more frustrating than seeing a place like Rio City Cafe shut down at our waterfront while we're also saying we want to build up our waterfront, because the city was the slumlord that didn't do the maintenance necessary to keep them open. That means we lost their rental revenue and the tax revenue come in. That's going backwards. So I want to make sure that businesses here can grow their revenue, because that's good for the city as well, and it boosts us toward the future. But in addition to that, when I was on the Measure U committee 5 years ago, we knew about this recession. It was predicted in the 5-year projections. And we also had just seen the council pay a consultant company, Management Partners, for 39 process and efficiency recommendations to be able to make sure that we were streamlining our spending and avoiding budget shortfalls. And so it's frustrating to have given some of those as recommendations to the council, recommendations that would involve not having to cut any staff, and yet the council didn't take action on them, and we find ourselves in a predictable outcome once again. So my plan is to implement those.
Thank you, Dr. Kofer. Now, Assemblymember McCarty, you also have 1 minute for this question. What will you do to avoid another massive budget deficit, and do you support raising taxes?
Well, I'm not going to cut police funding, fire funding, or our city parks. We need to focus on opportunities to look for efficiencies in the city of Sacramento budget. I am deeply concerned that we've had increases year after year in revenue, and we're facing a deficit. 15 years ago, when I was on the city council, we had the Great Recession, major drop in property tax, sales tax, massive foreclosures, and we had to make tough budget decisions. Now, that's not the case. So I want to use my experience as a former city council member, somebody who chaired a budget committee in the legislature for 9 years, looking at our ongoing revenue versus our expenditures to make sure we're balancing our core priorities and zeroing on that. And then, yes, we need to focus on increasing revenue through growing the economy. I support lowering barriers for more development, taking downtown land that's currently at zero property taxes on the state rolls and turning into private sector hands to build housing and grow revenue, expanding projects like Aggie Square. And no, I don't support going back to the voters to increasing taxes. They said no as recently as last March. So we need to work on the issues ourselves.
Thank you. Dr. Kofer, anything you would do differently? Anything that you want to respond to Assemblymember McCarty?
I'm ready on day one to take this on. I don't have to get up to speed because I've been serving as the Measure U Community Advisory Committee Chair. And so we've done a deep dive into the budget. I know the recommendations and I know what has been put before us as an option. So what we need to do is focus on implementation. And that's where my experience as an executive leader, as someone who has set goals and also implemented, it comes to bear. And so I want to make sure that the city of Sacramento is not in the perpetual planning phase that we always are. We love to have a plan, we love to do an audit, and then we let them sit on the shelf, much like these plans, and do nothing with it. And that will change with a Mayor Kofer. I will make sure that we implement.
Thank you. You also have 30 seconds, Assemblymember McCarty, if you would like to respond.
No, we can go to the next questions. We're good.
Okay, well, let's turn to our next topic then. You know, some businesses have been forced to close downtown especially. So let's talk about your plan to boost the economy and bring people back to the city center. Let's start with Assemblymember McCarty.
Yeah, one thing I think that we did well during the pandemic is allow people to go eat outside. Our nice weather in Sacramento usually, even when it's hot or cold, people like to eat outside. We had this al fresco dining. Well, after that ended, we told restaurants, hey, you can do that, but you need to apply for a permit and build, you know, these structures which cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. Only 1 or 2 businesses have done that. So I want to lower barriers to make it easier for restaurants to focus on bringing people downtown, making it easier for individuals to thrive. I also want to zero back on when I talked about our state buildings. People are working from home. We're not putting the genie back in the bottle as far as remote work. So we need to zero in and double down on efforts to utilize state buildings to have more cultural events downtown, build more housing downtown, focus on how we can bring more revenue and people back to the city. That's what really matters. And Dr. Kofer and I both agree on this. We want to partner to have our universities having a central location. Sac State already has a downtown location. They're looking to move that. UC also is looking to grow in the center core. So having more diversity downtown helps local businesses in our core thrive.
Dr. Kofer, you have this question as well. 1 minute. What can be done to bring people back to the city center?
You know, when I moved to Sacramento 20 years ago, downtown had the same challenges that it's been facing. So it's not the pandemic that caused the challenges, it's that we largely rely on state workers because we don't have enough housing downtown, and we haven't really thought about how we're going to use our downtown area. And so at 3 o'clock, when the state workers take their last breaks, all the businesses start shutting down. And the beautiful thing about being able to pair up some of our needs and take advantage of our local strengths is that we can bring a Sac State residential campus downtown, where we have young people who don't wake up until 2 p.m. anyway, ready to go and ready to look for coffee and to support our businesses downtown. That would be a great way for our city center to thrive. But in addition to that, we also need to think about, what does our front door look like? When people come into Sacramento, are there vacant buildings everywhere? Are there ways that we can actually partner with our creative economy to do pop-ups and other things to support those downtown businesses? Because one of the things we know, the Downtown Partnership has done this research, is that people want to come downtown more for entertainment than for work.
Okay, Assemblymember, you have 30 seconds for rebuttal.
Yeah, back to the key issue of keeping the city safe. This is a big problem. Downtown businesses, in addition to what we talked about earlier, want to focus on homelessness and public safety. That's why having more police officers downtown responding to property crimes and real crimes as they're happening, people call 911, is so key to bring people back downtown so we don't have people fleeing to Roseville or outside of Sacramento. So I'm proud to be the candidate endorsed by our local police officers because I know I'm going to make it a priority to zero in on public safety downtown.
Dr. Kofer, 30 seconds.
Justice for most Sacramentans is not somebody responding after a crime has happened or after they've been harmed. It's never being harmed in the first place. And prevention means keeping our downtown safe, not responding after something bad happens. And that's why I want to invest in the things that keep us safe. Having a robust, not empty downtown means that there's more people around. Making sure that we actually address homelessness means that we're reducing the things, the crimes of just survival that people are experiencing. And so that's what I want to do. I want to hone in on what are the levers that actually prevent things instead of constantly trying to respond. Again, nobody wants to receive their health care in an emergency room, and safety is not just responding after bad things happen.
All right, thank you both for your answers. Now we're going to talk about migration. So as we know, our city, Sacramento, is a sanctuary city. And as the crisis at the border, southern border with Mexico continues, what will you do as mayor to prepare the city for the possibility of more migrants arriving here? And we're going to start with you, Dr. Kofer.
I'm proud that I live in a city that says that people can come here and can be well cared for. And I want to make sure that we live up to that. So that means making sure that the people who are already here are certainly supported, and we're doing not the greatest job at that right now. We have thousands of people who don't have a place to stay. And so as we're thinking about new people coming in, I think the solutions are similar. We need to be making sure that we're expanding housing options. We need to be thinking about who our partners are who can help us with this. But we don't want to be a city that turns people away. We want to be a city that makes sure that we're not fighting individually over who we're going to help. We're making sure everybody who comes to our city has an opportunity, and everybody who comes to our city can be cared for and can be a part of our thriving future. And that's what I want to do. I want to partner with the organizations that are doing this work. I want to make sure that we have adequate places for people to go. And I want to make sure that we can honor our core values, which are that Sacramento is a wonderful place and one of the most diverse cities in the country. And we want to continue being that for many years to come.
Thank you, Dr. Kofer. Assemblymember McCarty, same question. As mayor, what would you do to prepare the city in case more migrants arrive here?
Well, even during the first wave several months ago in the prior years, it really wasn't a hot issue in Sacramento. But Sacramento is a city that always welcomes refugees. It's personal to me. I look at my teenage daughters, 3 or 4 of their grandparents are immigrants. So we need to make sure that we focus on supporting our immigrant community. Sacramento welcomed refugees in the 1970s after the fall of Saigon, in the 80s with Russia, later on with Afghanistan, Iraq, and in the recent wars, Ukraine. So Sacramento has always welcomed refugee communities. We have organizations that are here that make sure we work on the students to make sure they can thrive in the public school system, focus on individuals to get employment opportunities. So I think Sacramento has been a leader in this issue. I don't see it as a major draw in Sacramento. We're not a border city, but if we do get an example, like people sending a bus up here responsibly like we had a couple years ago, Sacramento will always rise to the occasion.
Thank you for your answer, Dr. Kofer. Anything you would do differently? You would like to respond to something? You still have 30 seconds if you would like.
I think this is an issue that Sacramentans agree on. It's one of the things that makes me very Sacramento proud.
Assemblymember, I want to make sure you have 30. Okay, perfect. We can move on.
Well, we do thank you both for taking those questions. It's time now for just a quick break.
Yes, we'll be right back with both of our candidates for mayor of Sacramento.
November 5th is Election Day, and there are a lot of decisions to make, from choosing new lawmakers to changing how your tax dollars are spent. ABC 10 is here to help you vote more informed, with simple explainers breaking down California's 10 ballot measures. Meet the local candidates and where they stand on issues. And we're visiting communities to help answer your questions. All the information in one place. Stream anytime on ABC 10 Plus or visit abc10.com/vote. Welcome back to the conversation with the candidates for mayor of Sacramento. I'm Chris Thomas with ABC 10.
And I'm Miriam Villarreal with Telemundo 33. Dr. Flo-Jean Kofer and Assemblymember Kevin McCarty are answering our questions.
That's right, and it's time now for closing statements. Dr. Kofer won the coin toss, so she will go first.
You know, Sacramento is a wonderful place to live, and I want to make sure that we're capitalizing on all of the great things about being here so that we can build towards a bright, prosperous future. And that looks like making sure that as your next mayor, you have someone who has executive leadership experience, who has led organizations, who has responded to budgets, and who has made sure that staff understand what their role is, who's brought people together across the aisle, those who are both in more conservative and more progressive dispositions, to be able to achieve outcomes. And also someone who has helped to pass federal, state, and local policy. Someone who has worked and served on 4 city and county commissions and has the relationships to collaborate and to bring you in. Because Sacramento deserves, as its next mayor, someone who listens to us, respects us, partners with us, and make sure that we all have a way to be able to build a vision for a bright, prosperous future. And that's why I would love to earn your vote over the next several weeks.
Dr. Kofer, thank you. Assemblymember McCarty, you have 1 minute as well for your closing statement.
Thank you for putting us on today. This is a big decision for Sacramento. We're at a turning point for which direction we go. And I'm ready to lead our city on day 1 on December the 10th. I'm a lifelong Sacramentan. I love this community where we're raising our teenage girls. I think about them a lot as I run for mayor, because being mayor is not about today. It's about 5 years from now and 10 years from now. I want to make it sure as a city that thrives, we have safe neighborhoods, we have a vibrant economy, we have a fun city where people can participate in sports and music and culture and our food downtown. I want to make sure that we tackle our problems working with others. You know, I've been a city council member, I've been a city commissioner, I've been an assembly member. What does that mean? I'm good at working with others, because as mayor, you need to partner with our local governments, whether the state, the federal, the county, to work on issues like public safety and homelessness, growing our economy, balancing our budget. I'm proud to have the support of our firefighters, our police officers, our business and labor groups, and elected officials throughout the region who have seen me up close tackle problems big and small, and I would love to be your next mayor of the city of Sacramento.
And that is indeed time. We thank you both for participating in the Sacramento mayoral conversation tonight. Again, I'm Chris Thomas with ABC 10.
And I'm Miriam Villarreal with Telemundo 33. Election day is Tuesday, November 5th, so please go out and vote. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
This election season, Stockton's current mayor hopes to go to Washington. Republican Kevin Lincoln is challenging incumbent Democrat Josh Harder in Congressional District 9. Harder has represented the district since it was redrawn. And now Lincoln's run for Congress leaves a spot open in the mayor's office.
Tonight, ABC 10's Gabriel Porras introduces us first to candidate Tom Patty vying for that seat, followed by Christina Fugazi.
I'm Tom Patty, County Supervisor here in San Joaquin County.
Second-generation Stocktonian and single father Tom Patty hopes his 8 years on the county dais and decades as a businessman before that will resonate with voters and land him a new job blocks away as Stockton's next mayor.
Look at what I've accomplished in the county, and if you roll over that into the city, we've addressed the city's biggest challenges. Public safety in the county is down 30%, crime is down 30%, violent crime is down over 20%.
In Stockton, police data shows overall crime is down 15.9% and violent crime is down 3.3% in just the past year.
One thing I'd like to do for certain, I've talked to the police chief about this, and as well as with the city manager, who I have a great working relationship with, is looking at instituting and bringing back satellite police stations in some of the regions where a lot of citizens are feeling unsafe, or there is even some high crime zones that we need to target and squash some of the bad behavior.
Patty says homelessness is his other top issue. More than 2,450 people sleep on Stockton streets without shelter each night, according to numbers released in May.
The Housing First model has been a resounding failure. It's a component, but it's not the only pathway for going forward. I'm going to use this word often, partnerships. City and county working together with multiple agencies, bringing people into a place where there are support services and a pathway to stability.
Officials say homeless were living inside this vacant building around the time it burned down in September. The latest downtown building to go up in flames in at least a third rundown structure within a block.
We need to have levels of accountability. We need to have code and code enforcement so that we have a certain standard. As it relates to abandoned buildings, it's always best to go forward with partnership. What could the city do in partnership with the private sector to incentivize, whether it be affordable housing, whether it be businesses and creating enterprise zone and commerce throughout our city?
But the mayor can only do so much. With Stockton operating under a city manager council structure, the mayor is just one of 7 equal votes. In our interview, Patty declined to support any policies to change that structure.
But some people might recognize your name on the ballot, having run for county supervisor, even for Congress in the past. Why the mayor's office and why now?
As we term out as a county supervisor, we have 2 term limits. I've got so much in motion that I want to roll that over to the city. I'm glad to be running against a friend of mine and wish her luck, but I think it's going to be a good spirited race to the finish. I'm prepared to win this election with the hard work and effort and work I have.
30-year educator of Stockton students, former planning commissioner.
High school administrator, former vice mayor, and 7th-generation Stocktonian Christina Fugazi is hoping to convince voters to send her back to City Hall, this time as mayor. Why do you want to go back to City Hall and why now?
My principal asked me that very same question. And I have a vision for Stockton. Like I said, 7 generations in this city. I'm not going anywhere. This is my home. And I know what it used to be like.
Despite police department data showing a drop in overall crimes, including violent crimes in the past year, Fugazi says people used to feel safer.
A lot of crime goes unreported. I know businesses that are like, this is the 3rd time I've been broken into. I am not going to even report it. Making sure that we have a fully staffed police department, things like cameras. We need to have all the tools in our tool belt available to our officers.
Right after crime, Fugazi says homelessness is her other top priority. More than 2,450 people sleep on Stockton streets without shelter each night, according to numbers released in May.
We need to have transitional housing. We need to have below market rate housing. We need to have inclusionary housing. So let's say we're building 100 units. Well, the people building those houses should be able to afford some of those houses that they're helping to build. On top of that, I would say we do need to have safe camping and safe parking.
Christina also thinks more should be done about abandoned buildings. In September, a building that sat vacant for years in the heart of downtown caught fire. It was one of several similar structures to burn in the same area that Fugazi oversaw while serving on Stockton City Council.
I brought up having a vacancy building ordinance, and we had it all spelled out. Council did not approve the ordinance that we had developed. It will be coming back. It will definitely be coming back.
But with Stockton operating as a city manager-council structured government, the mayor can't act alone. The mayor's vote is equal to any other city council members.
Would you support any measures that would give the mayor's office more power?
So that's an interesting question. I know that the big cities have strong mayors. You need to have somebody very competent in that position. I think I have the bandwidth to do that. But do I think that of everyone? It takes a while to get up to speed.
And Fugazi only has a few days left to make that case to voters.
And I serve everyone because I know who I work for. I work for the people. And people have asked me time and time again, why don't you run for mayor?
In Stockton, Gabriel Porras, ABC10.
There's more to come right here on ABC10. We're tracking the plan to keep your ballot safe. Plus, getting out the vote, the woman making it her mission to get as many neighbors as possible to make their voices heard. November 5th is Election Day, and there are a lot of decisions to make, from choosing new lawmakers to changing how your tax dollars are spent. ABC10 is here to help you vote more informed, with simple explainers breaking down California's 10 ballot measures. Meet the local candidates and where they stand on issues. And we're visiting communities to help answer your questions. All the information in one place. Stream anytime on ABC10 Plus or visit abc10.com/vote.
There's a new tool in San Joaquin County meant to help increase public trust in the election process. Thanks to a deal with live camera tech company EarthCam, the county has surveillance cameras watching all 25 of their drop boxes. It's also live streamed to the county website, and voters can view them at any time. They can zoom in, and there's even night vision.
I have a cell phone number that I can contact the sheriff if need be. To our knowledge, there has not been a problem with drop boxes, but it doesn't really matter what we know or what knowledge we have. It's public perception, and we want our voters to feel safe and secure.
And just so you know, all footage from the drop boxes will be archived for 22 months after the election is over.
A local woman is doing everything she can to make sure people vote and make their voices heard. She lives in North Sacramento and was disappointed with the turnout during the March primary. And so she's sending her neighbors a message in hopes of getting more people to vote. ABC10's Jeannie Nguyen has a closer look.
These group of women,
voting is so important, and I've never missed an election that I could vote in,
are all residents of District 2 in Sacramento. And with less than a month until Election Day, they want to make sure their neighbors cast their ballots.
We're writing postcards to those people that we're calling reluctant voters, those that did not vote in the last election.
Data from this year's March primary election shows nearly 25,000 people are registered voters in District 2. But only 5,784 people voted in the district's city council member race. In comparison, over in District 4, there are about 38,000 registered voters, and 18,500 of those people voted in that council member race.
We are underserved in our district. We have a problem with litter, we have a problem with homelessness, we have a problem with alcohol sales.
As a resident of District 2 for 40 years, Patricia Sayer Handley believes these postcards addressed to registered voters in her district will help encourage and empower her neighbors.
By voting, they're empowering our city council person, and that's absolutely critical. We need not more plans, we don't need a lot more studies. What we need is action.
The goal is to make 10,000 postcards to send out. Kate Johnson is a volunteer who believes these could work.
I would just like to see the numbers go up from last year, or last election, so more people voted in this election than in the last election. That would be a success.
Even though they will have to wait to see if these postcards will do the job, Sayer Handley believes she is making a difference. In Sacramento, Jeannie Nguyen, ABC10.
And so far, the group has a few thousand postcards. Grant High School students are also helping the group in hopes of meeting that goal of 10,000 postcards.
On the national level, as Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump fight for the White House, California will have a major hand in deciding the balance of power in Congress. We're looking at two critical races, plus the latest in the effort to curb California's retail theft crisis. You have a decision to make. What you need to know about Prop 36.
November 5th is Election Day, and there are a lot of decisions to make, from choosing new lawmakers to changing how your tax dollars are spent. ABC10 is here to help you vote more informed, with simple explainers breaking down California's 10 ballot measures. Meet the local candidates and where they stand on issues. And we're visiting communities to help answer your questions. All the information in one place. Stream anytime on ABC10 Plus or visit abc10.com/vote. In Your Voice, Your Vote, we're tracking the big national elections, and the race to control Washington is extremely tight. The latest ABC News poll shows Vice President Kamala Harris with a 2% lead over former President Donald Trump, 50 to 48% among likely voters. And we know the race for president alone doesn't mean the candidates get to enact their policies.
And they need help, most of all from Congress. But more specifically, they need their party in power. Right now, the Democrats hold a very slim majority in the Senate. There are 34 seats up for grabs this election cycle. 8 of them could go either way. And it's rare for senators to vote across party lines on major issues, so every seat counts. The late Dianne Feinstein's U.S. Senate seat is up for grabs this November.
Congressman Adam Schiff and former pro baseball player Steve Garvey are both hoping to get your vote. And here's the deal. ABC 10's Alex Bell spoke to both of them about their plans and the top concerns here in California.
This election is the most important election in our lifetimes.
Southern California Congressman, Democrat Adam Schiff, is calling on people not to sit out this election. The Bay Area native is a Stanford and Harvard Law School graduate, former federal prosecutor, California state senator, and congressman of more than 20 years.
We have an opportunity to really move the country forward, to take more meaningful action on bringing down the cost of living, raising up the living standards of Americans, attacking climate change, attacking gun violence, restoring reproductive freedom.
It's a transitional time in California and America.
Republican candidate Steve Garvey is hoping he will win the U.S. Senate seat, a seat no California Republican has held in more than 30 years. Garvey, originally from Florida, attended Michigan State University. The professional baseball star played for the Los Angeles Dodgers and San Diego Padres for nearly 2 decades, and since became a motivational speaker, businessman, and philanthropist, calling California home for more than 50 years.
We've had failed politicians, career politicians that haven't served the people. They've run for power and wealth. I don't need those things. I don't need to build a name or a brand. It would be the greatest honor for me to be able to represent the people of California and to be their voice.
With California's homelessness crisis top of mind for many voters, ABC 10 asked both candidates how they plan to address the issue.
My top priority in the U.S. Senate is going to be building more housing in California, bringing down the cost of housing, attacking the problem of homelessness. It all comes down to the same thing, which is a lack of supply.
Most people talk, we got to find homes for the homeless. Well, that's going to happen, and a local involvement is going to be a big key to that. But let's get to the real issue, and that's mental illness and addiction. Let's get them into facilities.
ABC 10 also asked why voters should choose them over their opponent.
All the main issues that Californians and Americans are facing now about their quality of life and cost of living and safety, he hasn't been able to do anything about it. And that's why it is time for change.
We know that he's for Donald Trump. He's made that very clear. And we know that he's for states' ability to ban abortion. That is not the direction California wants to go. In fact, it's quite the opposite direction that California wants to go.
Oh, don't forget, you'll see Steve Garvey and Adam Schiff in 2 races on the ballot, one to finish the term of Dianne Feinstein and a full Senate term that lasts 6 years in Washington, D.C.
Now in the House, it's a very slim majority for Republicans. All 435 seats are contested every 2 years. Pollsters estimate more than 40 are truly up for grabs. The majority picks the Speaker of the House. The House can also introduce and pass articles of impeachment. Political analysts say several races here in California will help determine which party controls the House.
Yeah, one of those a rematch of the closest congressional race of 2022 in California. Republican newcomer John Duarte beat out then Democratic Assemblymember Adam Gray by less than 0.5%.
ABC 10's Devin Truby sat down with both candidates as they face off for a second time.
Voters in District 13 have 2 choices for the congressional seat this coming Election Day, incumbent and Republican John Duarte.
Lower gas prices, lower grocery prices, drill American oil, get affordability back, get water on the farm so we have opportunity here in the valley.
Or Democrat Adam Gray, who was a state assembly member for 10 years.
Water is at the top of the list. Healthcare. I want to see Congress back to kind of mainstream American stuff.
In a predominantly agricultural district, Duarte wants to continue with legislation that will allow farmers to store groundwater.
Is do some canal extensions and some interconnects that would really create a lot of flexibility within our system and allow us to use water where it's critical that's already getting dumped out to the ocean.
Gray would like to see additional investments from the federal government.
Invest in infrastructure. We need to invest in floodplains, above ground storage, below ground storage.
Each one of these candidates had a unique message they wanted to share with the voters.
I am a pro-choice Republican. I support choice. I support women's rights. I've got a voting record that shows it. I'm rated by Heritage Foundation to be the most moderate Republican in the entire conference nationwide.
The organization Planned Parenthood says Duarte votes 21% of the time to support issues related to sexual and reproductive health and rights, a higher score than many of his California Republican colleagues. Duarte says he's also proud of his endorsement from the Central Valley Leadership Roundtable, who have never endorsed a Republican before. As for Gray, he's highlighting his endorsements from the Merced County Sheriff Vern Warnke and Stanislaus County Sheriff Jeff Dirksey, Merced County DA Nicole Silveira, who identified themselves as Republicans in a campaign ad for Gray.
I'm one of the only congressional candidates in the country endorsed by elected Republicans, and I'm proud of that, right? I've got a broad array of support from every corner of the community. That's what we need to do, is work together. And I think the American people are tired of all the fighting.
When it comes to endorsing a president, Duarte says he'll be following his party and endorsing former President Trump. Gray says he is endorsing Vice President Kamala Harris.
According to the FEC, so far, incumbent John Duarte's campaign received nearly $4 million this election cycle. Adam Gray has received more than $4.8 million.
In addition to choosing lawmakers, you also get to say yes or no to new laws directly through propositions. This year, there are 10 propositions. ABC 10's Brandon Ritterman breaks down one of the most controversial, Prop 36.
Prop 36 would roll back changes to criminal laws in California that were made by voters a decade ago. In the year 2014, California voters passed Prop 47, downgrading a bunch of drug and theft crimes from felonies to misdemeanors. Prop 36 would reverse many of those changes. Right now, California laws make it a misdemeanor to steal property worth $950 or less. Under Prop 36, that crime would become a felony if the offender had 2 prior theft convictions. There's a big difference between these 2 levels of crimes. Misdemeanors don't always result in hard time, but when they do, it's a year or less in county jail. Felonies, on the other hand, can carry multi-year sentences, sometimes served in county jail, but often in a state prison. Prop 36 would require prison instead of jail in more felony cases. Prop 36 does contain changes to push some drug possession offenders towards treatment programs instead of prison. It also comes with what lawyers call a Watson advisement for drug dealers. On conviction, judges would put those offenders on notice that they could be charged for murder if they sell drugs again and somebody dies from using them. It costs money to put people behind bars. The state's fiscal analysts figure we're talking tens or possibly hundreds of millions of dollars more a year to house people in state prisons if Prop 36 passes. A yes vote on Prop 36 passes the package of tougher penalties for specific theft and drug crimes. A no vote rejects the measure, leaving the criminal law the way it is.
Now, Brandon has explainers for all 10 propositions on the ballot. You can see them all now on the ABC 10 Plus app. It's free on Roku, Amazon Fire, and Apple TV. And do you have more questions? You can send them to us right now. Just head over to abc10.com/vote and you'll find the survey to tell us what else you want to know about voting and the election. We do want to say thank you for watching Your Voice, Your Vote right here on ABC 10.
We urge you to learn more about the issues and the candidates and cast your vote on or before November 5th. Remember, you can watch us anytime, any day on your schedule. That includes the full Sacramento Mayoral Forum. It's free on the ABC 10 Plus streaming app wherever you stream. See you next time.